glad you're here. Welcome to the Mission Manhood podcast. Today my guest is Ewan Corlett. He is the founder of Young Men Evolution. Ewan has a special compassion for young men, and based on his own experience with addiction and recovery and overcoming childhood trauma, he seeks to help men find their purpose and discover their unique gifts and how they're meant to help the world. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. He was a real pleasure to talk to. If you get a chance, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you can, leave a review. That would be super helpful. I appreciate you joining, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to the Mission Manhood podcast. Today, my guest is Ewan Corlett. Hi, Ewan.
Hi. Hey, great to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with me today. I feel like I have known you since I got on Instagram, so that's been a little while now, and we've never spoken in person, but I do feel a familiarity with you because I've been following your work, and I think you do some really great work. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
So I've been a counsellor, therapist in private practice for 3 years now. In recent times, I've had a lot more men coming through my doors. And so about just over a year or so ago, I realized that the coaching approach may work better with young men and men in general. So I'm beginning to adapt my practice to more of a coaching stance, but whilst also maintaining my therapeutic practice as a business. So I'm just transitioning over to create Young Men Evolution, which is the concept of young men developing greater emotional intelligence so that they can form healthier partnerships and bring emotionally intelligent children into the world. Alongside their emotionally intelligent partners, of course. So I kind of ask myself, what's the greatest good that I can do with my own life experience and my own professional experience? And this is where I felt that I was being drawn to. So I kind of surrendered to that and allowed it to unfold. And that's where I'm focusing my attentions moving forward.
Is your target group?
Currently, as I launch things, it's more 20 to 40. However, once I have a decent amount of funding underneath me, then I'll look to broaden out to serve more of the public from more of a all-inclusive stance throughout society. I'm kind of just allowing the vision to take hold. So at the minute, I'm just focusing on creating a group, an emotionally intelligent group of men that check in weekly with each other, and looking to put my services out in a one-on-one sense to men, and also create coaching containers.
And then you have your benevolent content online that is available to all.
Yeah, I'm trying to negotiate this in that I have 2 Instagram pages, and I'm thinking, okay, can I realistically give my energy to both of these spaces? How do I combine the two? I'm just kind of at the moment letting go of the need to figure that out and just creating whatever comes up naturally content wise. So moving forward, be looking to utilize LinkedIn, as I see this a really great way of pushing the vision. So this is a platform that's growing, and in conjunction with Instagram, I think I can reach a lot of people I want to serve, and also through LinkedIn form the right collaborations, because I realize that the vision is about creating opportunity for young men as well, young men that want to serve in whatever capacity that may be for them, but also to move in the vision that I'm creating and to stand behind that and create opportunities, because I do feel that one of the biggest things for young men is a lack of opportunity, certainly here in the United Kingdom.
Do you mean in all areas, or is there a specific area?
Yeah, I mean, lacking opportunities in the job market, and also lacking enough awareness of what their talents are and their skills are. So that's really my idea, is that working on emotional intelligence alongside the awareness of where their core talents and skills are, so that they can move out into the world, into a career path within which they feel fulfilled. So my journey was one whereby I just fell into a job at the age of 22, 23, having been in various jobs prior to that, and then just stayed in that industry for like 15 years. It wasn't really in alignment with my core values or my core skills. And it was only in my early 30s that I took a step back and started to ask myself some fundamental questions about, what are my core skills? What is it I'll be good at? And that's when I retrained as a therapist. And I believe that if you can reach the young mind and provide them with the support they need, they'll be able to launch out on an aligned path, right, where they feel more fulfilled and just need more resources out in the world to be able to provide the support for them. I don't see a lot of that kind of support. I don't see a lot of that kind of support that is also emotionally aligned, that is empowering them with an emotional intelligence, because I do believe the two can sit really strongly together.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of something we have in common. The reason it sounds like that you're here, you have compassion for these men who are sort of floundering in a way like you were. Yeah. And you want to kind of help them to find their way so that we can have a more peaceful existence on the earth.
Yeah, it's like definitely. It's in one sense it's like a quantum leap back to my younger self to say, hey, bro, look, this is what you need to know. Like, and to be able to do that with the young man who struggles today, but then with the bigger vision of like, where's the world moving to? What are we doing? Like, are we working to heal the population and the planet, or are we just working to fill our own boots? Because I see a lot of stuff on the internet. It's just about making more money and getting what you want. And we need to think bigger than that. We need to start really maybe sacrificing some of our desire for this hedonistic desire, that's just engulfed our society of wanting for more all the time. We really need to challenge that. And so, I am coming from a very compassionate place, but a spiritual place, and a place of belief in our shared humanity and the ability to grow together in a shared vision, which I see expressed through social media. I see that, and I'm part of that, as you are part of that community, right? That community of people who share that similar vision.
I agree with you about I just posted yesterday about how there's so much pressure on men to do better and do more than their father did and be an entrepreneur and go and do. And there's not so much on being. And I mentioned this with a podcast guest earlier. I think we don't do a great job with our boys in teaching them that balance and flow between going out and coming back in. And that's the spiritual piece, I believe, that you're talking about. We teach them to go out and, dominate and be the man. And I think we do a fairly good job of teaching little girls to kind of embrace their masculine side. We tell girls they have to be tough and they have to be strong, so they're able to kind of naturally do that dance between the masculine and feminine. But our boys, we almost make it something to look down upon. It's like men are kind of set up to fail in a lot of ways. And
that's really refreshing to hear from a woman. Very refreshing to hear that from a woman. I think there is so much focus in the modern time around men, men not being enough, right? This whole toxic masculinity thing that's just been projected out. Masculinity, I think almost conceived that masculinity is toxic in the greater scheme of things. Young guys don't know who to be. Like, what is it I'm supposed to be? Like, you're telling me to go out into the world and do, and then I'm coming back and trying to be, and then you're not accepting that either. So what is it you want? What is it you want? I'm a true believer. The only problem we really have at the moment is one of a misunderstanding. Like you say, aligning those masculine and feminine energies and getting them to have a conversation. Well, let's have a conversation about what we're experiencing and listen to one another. So it's a joint effort, right? And I do believe that a lot of the men's spaces that I'm a part of are very, very much focused on the being. I think there are some spaces that have a great balance between the being and the doing, which is what I believe a healthy masculine man is about, right? It's that healthy balance between the two. And I think there are also spaces that have gone too far into the being and then are maybe detaching from the responsibility of that masculine essence to serve in certain areas. I do believe that everyone's on the same mission, but like we've all just got a slightly different take on it because every man that's putting content out or putting groups out there has a slightly different idea of what it is to be a man. And that's great, right? Because it means there's a broad diversity of that in the space.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to what you mentioned earlier is helping men specifically discover what their natural gifts, abilities, and talents are.
Mm.
Because that's why I really love the four archetypes. And I know people go really deep in the weeds with the archetypes, and I don't. It's a very basic framework that can help men to decide or see where they're a little off balance.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, I mean, sometimes you get caught up in the, say, magician, which is, the deeper spiritual, you're kind of going deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It also has a worldly element of just acquiring knowledge. But some men get there and they kind of go up on the mountaintop and they forget to come back down and do that service piece.
Yes, yes.
And, that cycle of I die to something, I suffer, then I kind of go up on the mountaintop and get refreshed, but then I have to come back down and give back. And
Yeah, and it's interesting that you share that because I think it's very much been my experience of late where I've detached from the world for the last 5 months and done a deeper, let's call it a deeper inner child shadow work, integration of parts of myself that I wasn't fully acknowledging, and I had detached from society in that, and that was a very liberating and peaceful space to be in. Painful, it was a full spectrum of being within it. And there was a reluctance to come back to the world. There was a reluctance to come back and serve because that state of detachment can become quite blissful. But then I could see myself absolving myself from the responsibility that I knew I'd been assigned with. And it does, I have to say, like, it does feel like that a lot. It feels like a burden. It feels like I have
yeah,
this thing that weighs on me that I must serve. I've received many messages without getting too woo-wah and out there, but messages from the universe with directing me and showing me quite clearly this is where you need to lay your attention. I didn't heed the call, so to speak. I was like, oh,
hmm
that's going to require too much from me. But the learning that I've had in the last 6 months has been that I have to put my well-being at the forefront of all things because I can only serve that which I feel I'm being drawn to serve as long as I take care of myself, which has taken a lot of the pressure off actually for me of the mission,
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that's exactly right. And that thing about not heeding the call. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bible story about Jonah, where he got swallowed by a whale and went through
Yeah.
all kind of problems. That was the whole point. He had been called to do something, and he was running from that, and so he went through all kind of trauma, and
Right. Right.
finally,
Yes.
and so I think that's just kind of one of those ancient stories that kind of shows us what happens when we run from that thing that we're supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We're going to suffer in some way and might as well be of our own choosing rather than our own avoidance, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It's like the more I avoid like you just said, basically, that the more I avoid it, the more pain I'm in. But when it can be on my terms, right? It hasn't
yeah,
got to be. And this is the thing you were saying earlier about having to be the most successful, having to make the most money, having to have the best car. All of these ideals that are pushed out through social media, and I see young people reaching for, so removed from what really needs to happen first, right? Needing to feel good enough just as you are in yourself, and then realize what the thing is that you're here for. And the whole world's saying you need X amount of money and you need this. And even in the coaching and therapy world, right? The 10K month, the 15K
Yeah.
month, the 30K month, it's like, okay, how much money do you need? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, this is one thing that I covered is like the more money one can make, the more opportunity there is to serve on a broader scale, provided one isn't incredibly greedy. But I've got off on a tangent a little bit there. But
yeah, money is a useful tool.
yes, yeah. Provided you have a discipline and you don't lose track of what you're here for.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. It is a tricky one.
I just feel like you've brought up so many things that are just truisms, and one of those, just by talking to you, it's life is a constant journey of finding balance. And it's almost like you're standing on a raft in a body of water and you're always trying to figure out how to stay upright. You can't get too far up the mountain. You can't go too far. You have to give, but you can't give so much that you deplete yourself. And that's just a constant and continual thing on our walk toward wisdom, I believe.
Yeah, I love how you put that. And it's really been a massive learning curve for me since I became a therapist and coach, is that how much energy have I got to give, and how much am I giving myself enough energy and time to recuperate, and am I treating my own needs with the utmost respect? Because what I realized is that the people that I serve suffer if I serve, right? Everything is an outward reflection of what I'm offering myself. So I have to place my own well-being at the forefront. And, that's been a learning curve and continues to be a learning curve. But I think I've, talking about that mountain, I think kind of reached certain points in the mountain where I can pretty much see 360, and which means that I'm my ability to say, okay, right, you need to stop now, and you need to give yourself this, or you need to take your foot off the gas and take a holiday or whatever.
Yeah.
And we lead by example, right? So it's like, I know that the men that I will serve moving forward will just be a reflection of some stage of my journey, and I'm excited for that. Because I mean, I thought, like, what an amazing thing to journey back to your younger self and just whisper in your ear and say the thing that you needed to hear, or just pivot yourself in a slightly different direction to transform the trajectory of the next 20 years of your life. I am a true believer, and that's why we're all here, to serve one another. We are one organism in a sense, the human race, right? A lot of people, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, but I'm excited for the future. I think great stuff's going to happen.
Well, that's awesome to have that perspective in such a kind of dark and perilous time. But I think you're absolutely right. You lead by example, and you learning to take care of yourself. Kind of what you're describing there. When you are depleted, when you are tired, you stop. And you've mentioned the inner child a couple of times, and I think it's so important to become a good parent to yourself. And it sounds like that's kind of what you've started to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing for quite some time now, but taking it to newer levels. I think that a lot of young men are trying to run before they can walk. There's this idea that they should be further along the line than they are now, and people aren't necessarily working with where they are and accepting that that's okay where you are, because we all have to start somewhere. And actually, the greatest service you can do for yourself is to do the inner work while you're younger, than to be motivated by things that won't bring you the fulfillment that you truly are seeking. It pains me to see that out in the world, and it pains me to see so many lost people in the world.
Yeah. It's like they haven't been given the skills. And some of this is just a skill set you can learn, which is what I love about what you're doing. Yeah. You're identifying that, wow, this is missing. This is something that I can teach. This is something I've experienced. And I want you to be have a better shot at it and not have to suffer so much.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. There's so much potential in so many people, right? And so many men are not realizing their potential. I think I'm still in the process of really figuring out the exact kind of group of young men that I'm serving. But I'm just allowing that to evolve naturally.
From the outside looking in, you do have that benevolence, that desire to help. And I think once you get that vision, and your vision is to make something better, that's what life is really all about. And if we can imagine, if everyone would understand their gifts, tap into them, and then turn around and use those for the greater good, what
Yes.
a utopia we would have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of that. That's where I want to lay my attention in exactly what you just said there. Each individual to utilize their innate gifts, right?
Yeah. If you don't learn how to get to that deeper place, that centered place, that true self, you forget to nurture and care for yourself.
Yeah. If you don't know how to nurture and care for yourself, then how are you going to know how to nurture and care for a partner or nurture and care for children or society?
Yeah,
It's all
exactly.
everything starts and ends with the self. So it's like my journey has been one of many years of suffering and addiction, and then the last 10 years in recovery, continued evolution in connection with myself, and coming fully home to my body, and learning, as you said earlier, to reparent myself, be fully present with all aspects of myself, without judgment. And when I do judge, acknowledging that part of self, and then continuing to do the work moving forward. And I've shifted and pivoted and worked with different people along the way, because certainly in the therapeutic work and in the coaching work, clients are going to always be triggering and testing the parts of yourself that you haven't yet given light to, so to speak. I believe the testament to anyone's efficacy in this kind of arena is their own dedication to self-healing, right?
I
Yeah.
believe that too.
It's a bit of a cliche, but when you fully love yourself, then you can fully love the world. My mantra is a Ram Dass mantra. I am loving awareness, and the realization of that is that if I am loving awareness, that is the nature of my soul, then I have to fully understand or fully be with my full self in order to really comprehend what that truly means. And that means loving everything in the world, all the good, all the bad.
Yeah.
Can I accept everything in the world exactly as it is right now and love it?
Like you're almost holding the space for it. It's not like you
Yes.
desire it to be that way, but I
Yes.
have no power over it. So I'm
Yes.
holding the space.
Yes.
And
I love how you put that. Just holding the space for it to be what it is, not
without arguing with it. Don't argue with what is.
And this is the metaphor for the body, for the self, right? You have to accept
Yes.
what is in order to integrate or shed that which is there. It's the avoidance that goes on in the individual, in society, that causes the problem. We're always avoiding that which is too painful, and then we suffer more and more, and we suffer more. And all we need to do is be willing to suffer, and we need to hold space for that, right? And if you're saying hold space for society, hold space for the world, then we need to start by holding space for ourselves. Many of us may not be able to do that for ourselves yet, so we need others to hold it for us first. And then once that individual is able to hold space for themselves, then they'll inevitably just be passing that on without even realizing it, or intentionally passing it on and raising that vibration, so to speak, so that we're all on a collective frequency or collective space.
One of the greatest contributions you can make, I believe, is to face those things in yourself, face your shadow, and reconcile yourself to yourself so that you don't continue to pass that down to the next generation and the next and the next.
Yes. Yes.
And it
Yes.
takes so much bravery to do that work.
Yes. This is where I realize how important it is to do the work. What I'm beginning to realize is, I will have spaces where I'm serving the younger man, so the 20 to 25-year-old, but spaces I'm serving the 30, 35, 40-year-old man who still is a young man within himself. He still hasn't integrated the shadow. He still hasn't, let go of the areas that don't serve him anymore, learn to be with his full self, to be seen in the fragility of the boy's emotions, right? And it's painful. Like, I see in the guys that I've worked with so far, I see the depth of defenses that have been built around their heart. And Jose Alejandro, who you had on recently, said to me, the longest journey for a man is from his head to his heart. And I truly believe that. But if we get to the young man early enough, maybe that journey is not going to be quite so difficult. When they spent another 10, 15 years building around those walls, maybe the transition to dwell in the full self of the body can be a less painful one.
Yeah, I love that quote. I feel like the younger generation is kind of so skeptical. It's like they're calling BS on all of our stuff. Like, why do we need this much stuff? And I kind of feel like these younger people are going to lead us back to chickens and families and babies. And,
I agree.
So I think you're exactly where you need to be, because they're not really given the tools in school or even in church, actually, or in society to do this work. So it's going to mean people like you who have suffered, died, and been buried and been raised to new life, basically, is what's happened.
Yeah.
And you can share that experience before they get so entrenched in another way.
Yes. And I love what you said there, because it's like, I just had a vision that I'm trying to give energy to. And as other people, young guys, come into that with a shared vision, their expertise, their drive, their energy will likely exceed mine, which will be an interesting challenge for my ego as we move forward. But the point being is that I'm just a conduit for the vision that I've had, and that vision will align, and does align, as I've already realised, with many people who are carrying forward similar organisations or programs or whatever, and that we're all joining in a shared vision. It's just really just one vision with many different names. So, and this is something that I've been working on, will work on more, is my attachment to outcome, being less attached to the outcome of this, of just knowing that this is about compassion. This is about holding space for young men so that they can integrate their full self, go out into the world, live with purpose and direction that's in alignment with their talents and core skills, and then give in relation to that, and that we can all then move on the same path, the same trajectory for growth in love.
Your point about not really knowing, I think that is just a description of the walk of faith, that you have this vision and your job really is to get yourself reconciled within, which, you're working on that. Mm-hmm. And then it's like that awful risk that feels like you're stepping off of a building, of putting one foot in front of the other, because that imposter syndrome comes up. Who do you think you are? What do you have to say?
Yes. You got to what is it? You got to jump off the building to realize that there's only just a bed of feathers below you. The false projections of fear. And this is the thing that I've been trying to work on recently as well for myself, is the realization that this isn't about me. This is about the world. This is about humanity. So I need to get out of the way. And that's one of the biggest problems I keep having, is I'm getting in the way. What I want, how I think it should be. What do I want to get from this? It's not complicated. I keep saying this to myself. It's not complicated. Keep it simple. And I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And, taking on more guidance and, recently joining Jose Alejandro's container Intentional Impact, being in a container of men, of heart-centered men with similar visions, supporting one another in the shared vision. Right. So I historically have always been the lone wolf, and that's a big thing amongst us guys as well. Got to go it alone, got to do it on your own. If you ask for help, you're a failure. And challenging myself in a lot of my beliefs that have prevented me from seeking a deeper help from a business perspective. Yeah,
that's an important point that you brought up. That lone wolf is going to get eaten up, and
yeah.
I think men especially need to be surrounded with not only just like-minded men, but also balance themselves out in a way. Almost like the movie Ocean's 11, where those guys had the vision, but they knew they had to recruit, 5 to 10 other guys in order to make it happen because they didn't know everything they needed.
I love how you used Ocean's 11 to articulate that. Love it.
And I think that's how men really grow. It's like you're creating your own hive. You're all interlocked and you're helping each other and teaching each other. So
yeah, exactly that. And it's having the humility to realize it's okay that I don't know it all. And actually, that's a blessing to realize I don't know it all, because that means I can get someone in who does know it all in relation to whatever that thing may be, which is going to elevate things exponentially much more quicker. The ego wants to grasp at ownership, right? It's my vision. I brought this forward, which is why I'm not in a rush at the start of it. It's about getting the principles firmly embedded, the fundamentals all clear. So this is the vision. This is what it's about. If you're on board with this, then come and work with us, not come and work with me. Come and work with us. And I was just thinking about Ocean's 11. Was that George Clooney?
George Clooney.
He was the leader, wasn't he? So I get to be George Clooney.
Yeah, you can totally be George Clooney.
That's not such a bad person to be, George Clooney.
No.
Brilliant.
You mentioned humility. That is the holy grail, that humility. It's admitting that I don't know everything. I don't have everything I need. And then you become stronger because you're joining with people. But it also frees you up to really laser focus on what you are good at, because that's your contribution.
Yes. So great point. And that's been, so for example, when I started my counseling business 3 years ago, I did the website, I did all the marketing, I did everything myself. I've spent hours and hours on end doing all of this stuff. And now I'm very much of the awareness when I want to invest in a website. I haven't actually done that yet, but when I do, I'm not going to spend 3 months or 2 months, whatever, creating the website. I'm just going to pay someone. I'm going to go to someone with a plan and pay them to do it, and focus on the thing that I enjoy the most, because the thing that, and this is the core, another core message, is that the thing you enjoy the most, the thing that you're most passionate about, will align to your purpose. And that's the thing. So for me, I know it will be more of this kind of stuff, more of the talking, more of the video, the conferencing, the hosting workshops, that kind of stuff, because I love doing that, and less of the technical stuff,
Yeah. I'm going to outsource this other stuff because it frees me up to do what I love.
Yeah, because I think that's some of my frustrations, actually, is, doing the admin. It's it's laborious, isn't it? But, our willingness to do all of that will reflect the success of things, because it is in the willingness to step into the uncomfortability that we can begin to find success. I'm prepared to do the things I don't like doing in order to get the result that I'm looking to get for people.
It's been a really great conversation, and I appreciate you sharing with me.
You're welcome. I've warmed into it. I've enjoyed it. It's been nice. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Just very briefly, what I focus on is, one, I feel like I'm on the mother side of health and healing for men.
Yeah.
And it's that foundational wounds, the things that that happened to you. Who are you? What happened to you?
Yes.
And allowing yourself to see that. And I know through your work, you've really done that.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
you get to that point of learning the divine dance, and that starts within your heart, learning that nurture and care for yourself. Then that humility, that kind of surrender. I'm offering my life for something bigger.
Yes.
Throughout our conversation, I've seen all of that in you, and
Thank you.
it's just a really beautiful thing. And I know that you're going to really be able.
Well, it's lovely to be seen like that. Thank you. Yeah, and that is what it is, isn't it? It's the surrendering of oneself for the self of humanity, which the collective consciousness, we could say, of the human race, and realizing we are all one. And the reason that I can sit here and say that is because I've experienced it energetically in my body as I've come home to my body. I mean, I was disassociated from my body as a boy and a teenager, and I didn't realize until I did the work over the last 10 years and really deeper work in the last couple of years, how disconnected I was from my body and disassociated, I'll say, because, it was the inability to go to the trauma, to allow the trauma to play out. The death, as you said, the death and rebirth in that is so powerful that I felt overwhelmed with a sense of love and really understanding what the energy in the world is of that, and only now wanting to be in that energy, right? To transmit that energy. Yeah, but it's interesting, Angela, because like traveling back to my first 30 years of my life, well, from the age of about 13, 14 to 30, I was lost in addiction. So I wasn't putting that out into the world at all. And, it's such an amazing testament in my own experience of the strength of the human spirit to heal. And that's all we're intended to do is unearth the creation of disturbance in our youth to heal and come back home to the self that we were when we entered this existence, carnation, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the message of all the major religions. You came here, you acquired all this stuff like barnacles, and now you have to shed that and have a rebirth so that you can live your purpose.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Absolute pleasure.
Can you tell the listeners, people who may not know you, where they can get in touch with you or how they can contact you?
Yeah, so I'm only really on Instagram from a socials perspective, but if you go to @Ewan_Corlett or @young.men.evolution, and moving forward, as I said earlier, I think I will be trying to look more into broadening out LinkedIn and creating a website as well, so that there can be some proper interaction and offerings. My intention moving forward is to create affordable on-demand coaching programs, whilst also creating live coaching containers, workshops, etc.
Yeah, sounds awesome, and I love your vision.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing more from you in the future, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Angela.